What's up guys? On today's episode, the Milwaukee 90-degree die grinder. Is it as good as an air tool? It's pretty darn close. Alright guys, so as far as features on this tool, it has 4 different speed settings on the back of the head. Naturally, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being the slowest, 4 being the highest. Also has an LED down here on the bottom. I'm not too crazy about the LED because it kind of just lights up the bottom of your hand in my opinion. I think that could have been executed a little bit better. Has the usual, power level gauge, what's left in the battery, up on the handle. Pretty standard Milwaukee M12 stuff here. I think this tool offers you a lot more control than what a standard pneumatic tool does, just because you can dial this thing way back, and if you're doing real delicate work, you can turn it down and do what you need to do. But it's a lot easier to modulate the trigger on this compared to a pneumatic one. So one of the major drawbacks about the Milwaukee is obviously the size compared to the air tool counterpart. The biggest advantage though compared to an air tool is you don't need a hose. Working in industrial maintenance myself and having to get out 60 or 80 feet of air hose just to run one of these somewhere is a royal pain. So I bought this for work and I'm going to use it for work just because it's so portable and it's so mobile that I'm just happy I don't have to deal with coiling up 60 or 80 feet of an air hose every time I need to use one of these. Alright, so to test the power of this thing compared to a standard pneumatic die grinder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just make some timed cuts on this piece of scrap steel I got. I'm going to probably do like 4 or 5 cuts on each one, take an average, and we'll see, is this thing as powerful as an air tool? I'm going to tell you right now, these batteries aren't going to last nearly as long as what I can run one of those, because I have an 80-gallon compressor and it'll run one of those basically indefinitely. So naturally, I'm going to have to wait for batteries on this thing, but it is more convenient because you're not tied to the wall anywhere. Alright, so now for the air. So for air, what I'm going to do is I got this Harbor Freight, just cheap little die grinder. I think these are between like 9 and 15 bucks. They're super, super cheap. I'm going to go ahead and make a cut with one of these. I'm using 100 PSI air, and it's just a standard air fitting, nothing exotic. I thought for sure, the Milwaukee was going to struggle a little bit more than what it did. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than what it is, but that's only my first cut using a pneumatic tool, and I'm going to tell you right now the pneumatic tool isn't really going to do much better than that. My worst time with the Milwaukee was I think like in the 250 range, and as you guys can see, I was about 412 when that thing hit the floor. So it's probably 20 to 30% longer using a pneumatic tool than what it did with that Milwaukee, and I'm probably using 3 or 4 times the amount of energy, because running a 5-horse air compressor to run one of these little die grinders isn't cheap. Alright, I'm going to do the same test with a higher end die grinder. This one's an Ingersoll Rand. I think they run you about 45 or 50 bucks, but still nothing really that exotic. Alright, so the last test I'm going to do is going to be Ingersoll Rand again, freshly oiled, and I also have a Milton Type V air fitting in it. When you compare it to the one that was just in there for the last test, you can blatantly see the size difference. There is this one, and the tool's much larger, should give me more airflow, should give me more power. So we'll see. All right, so as far as runtime testing, what I did was I took the big 6-amp battery, put it in this thing, set it on high, and basically made more cuts like I did earlier. But I basically just saw how many continuous cuts I could make in a row and see how many pieces of 2-inch angle, 1/8 inch thick that I was able to cut. I was able to get about 4.5 cuts out of one 6-amp battery, which really isn't all that bad. Probably took, as you guys saw earlier, you know, the cut time on that was about, you know, 2.5 minutes per cut. So times that by 4 and that'll give you the total amount of runtime. Now the only downside to using this tool is the battery. Now with this, if you have a big enough air compressor, you can run this indefinitely. With this, you're gonna need either a rapid charger or multiple batteries or something if you've got, you know, major like production work or major grinding to do. But if you have major grinding to do, you're not going to use something this size. You're going to step up to something like this, or, you know, a corded version, or, you know, something else. So take that with a grain of salt. All right, so what do I think of this thing? I think this thing's worth the cost of entry, strictly based on the fact that every time I need to do a little bit of grinding, I don't have to dig out an air hose or, you know, find a place to plug it in, because like I told you, I work at a factory, so not always going to be a, you know, an airline accessible wherever I need it to be. So this is super convenient in you know, the factory world and the mobile repair world and that sort of stuff. You know, probably you guys working out in the garage, having an airline around, that's really a non-issue. But as you guys saw, this thing is more powerful than this particular Ingersoll Rand 90-degree die grinder. Even with the big fitting in it, you know, it made a little bit of a difference, but it's still not as quick as what this is. Now, this is going to chew through batteries. Obviously, you know, I only got 4 or 5 cuts out of this thing, and that's out of a 6-amp battery. So the 2-amp, you know, you may only get 1 or 2 cuts out of it. If you have a large job that you guys are doing, you're not going to use one of these 2 tools. You're going to grab a 4.5-inch grinding wheel or cutoff wheel and just use a standard grinder on it. You're not going to use something this small. One thing I found pretty interesting about this thing is the motor itself is up here in the head. You can actually see some of the windings through some of these vents. And so this is the entirety of the motor. Now, I don't know if they step up the speed going out to the end. I haven't split this thing open to actually see, but it's pretty interesting. If that armature in that motor is able to spin at 24,000 RPM, I can't believe that it is, but if it is, they did a hell of a job balancing this tool, because it doesn't vibrate hardly at all. A couple things I'd like to see Milwaukee improve on this. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be the light. The light, you know, just looks at basically the bottom part of your hand and doesn't really do that good of a job at illuminating what you're working on. If they just took that light, angled it a little bit more this way, probably would be a non-issue. But if you have big hands, you know, bigger than mine, the light isn't going to do you any good at all. The other thing I'd like to see is, now that this is electric, why can't you reverse this tool? So why can't you make it reversible like a drill, so I can control what direction the sparks get thrown in? You know, as big as this tool is, you're not going to be able to get it into all the places you can get this. And because of that, you know, you may be only able to throw sparks in your own face, is what I'm saying. So if you could reverse the tool, it may be, you know, a little bit nicer to use in confined areas. That's what I got for this video, guys. As always, if you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, go down and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.